யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேடீர்.
செம்மொழி வலையொலி யூடியூப் சேனல். இந்த சேனலின் மூலமாக, அந்த வலையொலியின் மூலமாக பல்வேறு தகவல்களை தினந்தோறும் நாங்கள் வழங்கி கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய அந்த நிலையில் சிலப்பதிகாரம் என்ற தலைப்பில் ஒவ்வொரு பகுதியாக வழங்கக்கூடிய அந்த தொகுப்பை முழுமையாக கண்டு பார்க்கலாம்.
The title of this paper is Silappathikaram, a Modern Perspective. This is a study of Silappathikaram in the light of Bhaktin's views on the epic and the novel. There have been numerous essays indicating that Silappathikaram in its structure, theme and narrative and stylistic features differs radically from the epics in Sanskrit and Western languages. Its uniqueness becomes evident when it is compared with the well-known epics that have already found a place among world literature. Considered one of the 5 great epics, Aimbarum Kappiyam, in the Tamil literary tradition, Silappathikaram in its Padiham describes itself as a poem interspersed with prose and songs. Uraidaita Pattudai Cheyyul. Saminadayar explains that it is called Iyalisai Nadaga Porul Thodarnilai Cheyyul, since it fuses all the 3 Tamils, Iyal, Isai and Nadagam, and that it is also known as a Nadaga Kappiyam, since it has dramatic elements in it. In his commentary on Seyyuliyal, Nachinarkiniyar, while interpreting the phrase Pattidai Vaitha Kurippu as poetic works having songs in between, adds that there are writings like Thagadur Yathirai and Silappathikaram. And while giving the meaning of the Nurpa, Tonmaidhane Urayodu Punarnda Paramai Metre, Nachinarkiniyar cites Perundevanar's Paradam, Thagadur Yathirai and Silappathikaram as instances of this form called Tonmam. Those that are intrigued by the architectonics of Silappathikaram may find the ideas of Bhaktin on the epic and the novel extremely illuminating. Subjecting the ancient Greco-Roman and European literature to a close study for an understanding of the novel's nature, origin and development, Bakhtin, a great Russian scholar, demonstrates how the modern novel is very different from the old epic. In his books entitled Problems of Dostoevsky's Poetics and the Dialogic Imagination, and in his essays called Discourse in the Novel, Forms of Time and of the Chronotope in the Novel, he expounds his concept of dialogism vis-a-vis the novel and enumerates the discriminating characteristics of the novel in his essay Epic and Novel toward a methodology for the study of the novel. In his view, Dostoevsky's fiction, The Brothers Karamazov, provides a good example of dialogic narratives, by which he means narratives characterized by the interaction of several voices, consciousnesses or world views, none of which unifies or is superior to the others. The narrator's views, judgments and even knowledge do not constitute the ultimate authority in a polyphonic narrative as distinguished from a monologic narrative. Multiple discourse is curtailed intentionally in a monologic novel in which the voice of the author predominates, whereas the novel's propensity for multiple discourse is explored in the Bildungsroman, highly developed in Rabelais and extreme in Dostoevsky according to Bakhtin. By heteroglossia, Bakhtin means that multiplicity of social voices linked and interrelated dialogically, which enters the novel through the interplay between authorial speech, narrator speech, inserted genres and character speech. Bakhtin divides literature into two large classes, that is elevated genres and low genres, elevated and low within inverted commas, the former being associated with the established culture and the latter with the popular counter culture. Calling the novel the totality of genres and subgenres opposed to the dominant culture, Bakhtin eulogizes its grand cultural mission and its subtle weaving of various types of speech, direct, indirect and doubly oriented. In Bakhtin's writings, the carnival in the Renaissance and the Middle Ages is indicative of a particular form of popular counterculture opposed to the medieval ecclesiastical and feudal culture. He believes that the influence of carnival is responsible for a set of genres of the serio-comical which have three main features. Number 1, their starting point for understanding, evaluating and shaping reality is the living present. Number 2, they do not rely on legend, but consciously on experience and free invention. Number 3, they are multi-styled and hetero-voiced. The great Russian literary theorist of the 20th century contends that a poetics of the novel should take into account the dialogic nature of language itself. Since language is a dialogic, the novel is the image of a language. It is itself dialogic imagination. The canonical genres like the tragedy, the epic and the lyric are monologic, while the novel, which is of recent origin compared to the high poetic genres, is still growing. The novel is still capable of a dynamic evolution, its generic skeleton being not yet hardened. On the other hand, the high genres were complete forms even in the distant past. Since the novel was born after the invention of printing, it had to take into account the mode of mute perception, that is reading, whereas the other major forms which existed before the invention of printing were primarily meant for oral perception. The canonized genres seek to establish a single style, a single voice in order to express a particular world view. In them, the individual characters may express opposing views, but the total effect is one of stylistic and ideological homogeneity. As the novel is becoming more and more dominant in the modern period, other genres are getting novelized. Finally, directly contrasting the novel with the epic, Bakhtin points out that the novel is an open dynamic form, while the epic is a closed one. If in the epic, presenting a past that is distanced, shaped and absolute, the character does not change. In the novel, the character remains in the process of formation. The epic's emphasis is on memory, the novel's emphasis is on knowledge and experience. The epic's voice is singular, the novel's voice encompasses polyglossia. The novel is a democratic and anarchic form, making the political authorities unhappy. Tracing the roots of the novel to folklore, Bakhtin claims that the mimes, bucolic poems, fables, memoirs, Socratic dialogues and Menippean satires written in the 3rd or 4th or 5th century BC were the novel's predecessors. Ilango Adigal's revolutionary achievement becomes evident when we realize that his epic has completely ignored the distinctions made by Bakhtin between the epic and the novel. Absorbing folkloristic elements into his work, Ilango Adigal has given his epic an altogether new shape. He has boldly closed the gap between high and low genres. One of the major defects of the epics in Sanskrit and Western languages is that those long compositions employ a single poetic form, a single metrical pattern from beginning to end, and narrate the story in a single voice, which is the author's, and are thus unable to avoid monotony. Their poetry, in no case uniformly and consistently good, has ups and downs, purple passages and prosaic ones alternating. Even Paradise Lost, universally accepted as the greatest epic in English, suffers from this defect, forcing Dr. Johnson to wonder if anyone can read the whole of Paradise Lost without losing interest off and on. Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Iliad, the Odyssey and the Divine Comedy are not exceptions to this rule. It is true that the celebrated authors of these epics managed to manipulate rhythmic variations even while employing a single meter with a view to sustaining aesthetic delight, but their success is limited. Ilango Adigal, on the other hand, employs numerous strategies to make the work gripping. In his 30 chapters Kadai, he uses diverse poetic forms by telling the story rapidly in Nilai Mandila Asiriyappa in 20 chapters and by shifting the Sindhiyal Venba and Nerisai Venba to Kanal Vari and Vetuva Vari or to Kundra Kuravai and Aichiyar Kuravai or to Kali Venba, Kochaha Kali, Uraivaru Katturai and Uraipattu Madai. In the other chapters, Ilango Adigal holds his readers spellbound. The folk songs that periodically make their appearance captivate the reader's heart and soul. The 22 Shrutis and 103 puns in the epic have won the special praise of experts in music. Folklore has left a lasting impression on all the chapters from Mangala Varthu Padal to Varam Daru Kadai in Silappathikaram. Not only many folk songs that allude to myths, but also a few fascinating ones that describe contemporary life and daily activities of ordinary people find a place in the epic at strategic context. Besides these, the desires and beliefs, joys and sorrows, customs and rituals of the villagers and much more representing their culture and feelings are given as much of importance as the life of the upper classes of the cities. Since there is a delightful fusion of poetry, music and dance, one of the discerning modern critics, Tamil Oli, feels that it is neither an epic nor a drama but an opera. That is, Silappathikaram is an opera, he says, to be performed on the stage, blending as it does melodious music and a variety of folk dances. He fails to notice that it goes far beyond an opera, as its chief qualities are epical. Alain Danielou, who translated Silappathikaram into English, views every kadai in it as a tale, as a novel in verse. It may be recalled here that to T.P. Meenakshi Sundaran, Silappathikaram is the first attempt at converting the individual lyrics of the Sangam period into a long narrative poem. And from the standpoint of Sangam literature, Silappathikaram is but a series of 30 individual poems. TPM further points out that each kadai is the statement of an individual, a kutru, narrating a story from his or her point of view. The veteran commentator Arumbada Uraigarar himself has observed that Kundra Kuravai in Silappathikaram is a statement of the heroine's female companion announcing the wedding. Varandaru Kadai is beyond doubt the only statement by the author. All the other chapters are structured like statements by the observers, Kandor, Kutru or others. Each of these is complete in itself and explains whatever is required, and therefore none of them can be termed a padalam or an atyayam of a traditional epic. All of them grow not by emphatically narrating the story, but by providing hints about the story. Kundra Kuravai, which may be taken as the confidant's statement, strings together the hill tribes' songs and merely refers to the incident that Kannagi, while standing by the side of a vengai tree, was taken away with her husband to the heaven. Arangetru Kadai, after dwelling at length on the kingdom and the condition of the teacher of music and of others, narrates the story only in the last 12 lines. Andimalai Sirappichai Kadai becomes the description of an evening in Puhar and displays Kannagi as one of the depressed and Madhavi as one of the delighted. Indra Viravur Edutha Kadai is an independent poem celebrating the festival named after Indiran. The chief objective of Kadaladu Kadai is the delineation of the beauty of Puhar as shown by the Vinjayan to his wife. Madhavi's dance is mentioned as one of the beauties of the city. A large part of the chapter called Kanalvari consists of only Kanalvari songs. When the Kadais are thus viewed as individual statements in the form of individual poems, it will be realized that Ilango's work differs in its structure from the epics in Sanskrit and Western languages, as well as from the Tamil epics such as Manimegalai and Sivakasindamani and Kambaramayanam. As TPM observes, when each of the 3 cantos in Silappathikaram is read in isolation, Puhar Kandam may be found to be a comedy which ends with the happy union of Kovalan and Kannagi after years of painful separation. Madurai Kandam, a tragedy which ends with the death of the hero, and Vanji Kandam, a historical drama which sings the victory of Seran Senguttuvan. The major characters of Silappathikaram are neither gods nor kings, but common human beings. Even though it speaks of the 3 great kings of Tamil Nadu, what it narrates is the story of the three citizens Kannagi, Kovalan and Madhavi, who are not free from common human weaknesses. Kannagi may be deified at the end, but in the first canto she is a young woman who cannot retain the love of her husband, and in the second canto an angry, vengeful and egotistic being who does not hesitate to burn the entire city of Madurai even after a repentant king and his grief-stricken wife are dead. Kovalan, born of a community of merchants, is one that does not mind deserting his wife and living with a courtesan bought for gold, an average man who acts impulsively without thinking about the consequences, and a prodigal who squanders his enormous wealth in a foolish and wasteful way. Madhavi is a courtesan who, by getting gold, is prepared to be the companion of a man already married to another woman. All these three commit mistakes at the beginning, regret their behavior because of painful experiences, and achieve purification and refinement. They are very different from the heroes and heroines of the ancient epics, but are similar to the chief characters in modern Western novels. In Silappathikaram, there is no villain of epical dimensions either. The goldsmith who steals the anklet brought by Kovalan and causes his murder by implicating him in a heinous crime is not elevated to the level of a Ravana or a Duryodhana or an Iago, the very personification of evil. The other epics glorify men's heroism and women's love, but in Puharkandam the dominant rasa is pity, and in Vanjikandam the dominant rasa is wonder. Ilango's revolutionary violation of the traditional epic conventions starts from the very beginning of the epic. The first Kadai does not describe the hero's birth. The wedding of Kovalan and Kannagi takes place, and the couple is felicitated by many who dance and sing an auspicious song. There is no invocation to the Almighty or to any of the known Hindu gods or goddesses or to the Buddha or to Arhan. In the songs that praise the sun, the moon, the rain and the city Pumbuhar, the moon is compared to Chola king's parasol, the sun is compared to his mandate, the rain is compared to his bounty. Man is ultimately praised in the form of tributes to nature. This Kadai, as TPM has noted, takes the form of a wedding invitation in which the place of the bride and the bridegroom, their names, the decision of their parents to join them in wedlock are mentioned one after another. The scene depicting young ladies resembles a dance performance, and the Kadai ends with a chant in praise of the king. May the tiger emblem inscribed on the brow of the Himalayas dwell on its golden crest forever. May Sembian of the spear fears in the great battle, world is ever victorious, wheel. The prayer to God and the poet's expression of extraordinary humility, which is Avayadakkam, found at the beginning of classical epics, are conspicuous by their absence in Silappathikaram.